George McCaskey is absolutely livid with Kevin Warren over this stadium mess. Tremaine Edmonds might get cut this week, and Pete Werner is popping up as the replacement, and Kamren Curl, the same one who picked off Caleb Williams' last pass in the playoffs, could come back to play in Chicago in 2026. All of this is blowing up right now, not at the end of the week. Right now, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and don't go anywhere. Bear down. There is something going on inside the Chicago Bears organization that nobody expected to see at this point. And this is said with all the seriousness in the world. This is serious. This is a full-blown scandal, and this could have consequences that go way beyond what any fan would have imagined at the beginning of this week. Let's talk about what went down last Thursday, because if this hasn't hit your radar yet, you are missing one of the tensest moments in recent Chicago Bears history. And the word tension is not being thrown around lightly. This is an internal conflict that went all the way up to the actual owner of the team, George McCaskey, when the person who holds the keys to the kingdom is, as people close to the building are saying, livid. That is not some locker room rumor. That is a real crisis. Kevin Warren, the Chicago Bears CEO and president, put out an official statement on Thursday saying the team was committed to Indiana, specifically to a new stadium project near Wolf Lake in Hammond. And in that statement, Warren went out of the way to praise Indiana Governor Mike Braun and the state lawmakers for creating the legal framework the Bears need to build there. It sounded like the decision was already made. It sounded like Indiana was the new home of the Bears. And here's the question: how bad is it to drop a statement like that when there are still ongoing conversations with Illinois? That looks like a monumental mistake, because it not only sent the wrong message to the public, it basically boxed Illinois out when that state was still sitting at the table. And that is where everything blew up. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker did not waste any time clapping back. Pritzker came out and said there had been a productive meeting with Bears representatives the day before on Wednesday, but then dropped a bomb that nobody saw coming. Kevin Warren was not in that meeting. Think about that for a second. The CEO of the franchise, the person who is supposed to be leading every stadium conversation, skipped the Wednesday sit-down with Illinois, and then the very next day put out a statement showering Indiana with praise. That says a lot, and none of it is good for how Warren looks inside Hollis Hall. Pritzker tried to calm things down by saying Illinois was still in the running to host the new stadium, specifically in Arlington Heights. But the damage was already done. Warren's statement created the impression that the Bears had already chosen Indiana, and that triggered an immediate reaction. According to reporter George Ofman, Bears owner George McCaskey was livid with Warren. And livid is not some throwaway adjective. It is not upset. It is not disappointed. It is livid. That is fury. That is the kind of tension that shakes the foundation of an organization. And Ofman doubled down, saying Warren's handling of that whole Thursday chain of events was, quote, a colossal disaster. So what does this mean for Bears fans? The stadium issue is absolutely fundamental for the future of this franchise. Chicago has been talking about a new stadium for decades, and the truth is that Soldier Field, for all its history and character, is no longer a competitive NFL venue. The Bears need a new stadium. The question is not if they are building one, but where, and who is going to lead that decision in a way that is actually competent and coordinated. And here is the bottom line. When the owner is livid with the CEO over how the communications around the biggest project in modern franchise history were handled, that is not some minor issue. That is a sign that something is broken in the Bears' internal structure. And at a time when the team is coming off a promising season, winning the NFC North for the first time since 2018 and reaching the divisional round, the last thing they need is an institutional scandal pulling everyone's attention away from what really matters: building a championship roster around Caleb Williams. Now, Arlington Heights is still in the mix. According to Ofman, Indiana is still a real possibility, and Warren is still the Bears' CEO, at least for now. But this situation puts a question on the table that the organization is going to have to answer very soon. Who is actually in charge of the Chicago Bears' strategic decisions? And that answer is going to shape way more than just the stadium zip code. It is going to define what kind of organization the Bears want to be for the next 20 years. Bear down, Chicago. Because if this city wants a championship team, The front office has to operate with the same precision and coordination that everyone expects to see on the field every Sunday. And what happened this week was not precision, it was chaos, and the whole NFL was watching. But if that caught you off guard, wait until you hear what is coming up in the next story. Because there is a possible roster move that could completely change the face of the defense in 2026, and it involves a player Dennis Allen knows inside and out. Stick around. Pete Werner, Tremaine Edmonds. Right now, there is a prediction making the rounds in NFL media that has the whole Bears community talking. And this needs to be broken down, honestly, in terms of what it would mean for the team. It is about a potential trade that could solve one of the most urgent problems the organization is facing before free agency kicks off, replacing Tremaine Edmonds. Let's take this step by step because this topic deserves a real breakdown. Tremaine Edmonds signed a $72 million deal with the Bears a few years back, and the truth is, the production never matched what is expected from someone with that price tag. Heading into the last year of the contract, Edmonds is carrying a $17.4 million cap hit. And here is the question, is that worth it for a linebacker who has not lived up to the deal? The answer looks like no, and apparently the Bears see it the same way because Edmonds is listed as one of the likeliest cut candidates before free agency opens. Now, the real problem is not moving on from Edmonds. The real problem is who steps in, and that is where Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated comes in with a prediction that the Bears could pull off a trade with the New Orleans Saints to bring in Pete Werner, a linebacker who knows Dennis Allen's defensive system inside and out, and that Chi-Town is a move that makes a ton of sense when you really look at it. Pete Werner was drafted by the Saints in the second round in 2021. Werner has played in 63 games for New Orleans, which means this is a player with real reps in the system Allen has been building for years. When talking about a linebacker who understands Dennis Allen's schemes, this is not someone who would walk into Chicago starting from scratch. This is someone who already knows how the pre-snap communication works, how coverages are adjusted, and how the run game is attacked in that defense. That has huge value for a unit that wants to take a real step forward in 2026. And speaking of the run game, that is exactly the most critical part of this whole thing. The Bears had the 6th worst run defense in the entire NFL last season. 6th worst. That is flat out unacceptable for a franchise that prides itself on a defensive tradition the whole league still talks about. This is supposed to be monsters of the Midway territory, the city that gave the NFL Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, and Brian Urlacher, and in 2025, the Bears rolled out the 6th worst run defense. That has to change. Werner, according to analysts, is not some elite coverage linebacker. That is the weak spot, and there is no reason to hide it. But as a run defender, Werner is exactly the kind of player Dennis Allen needs to anchor the interior run defense. Werner would be a perfect complement to TJ Edwards, who is shown to be a reliable player when healthy, and it would let DeMarco Jackson slide into more of a depth and special teams role where Jackson absolutely flashed last season. The most interesting part of this possible trade is the price, or suggests the Bears could land Werner for a late-round pick, a late-rounder for a linebacker with system experience under your defensive coordinator, who is also coming in way cheaper than Edmonds. That is a steal in any football language, and when this is compared with how the Lions have built their offense or how the Packers have used draft resources to stack their roster, here is the takeaway. This would be the Bears actually being smart with the capital they have. Now, does this trade actually happen? There is one big variable the Saints have to sort out first. If Demario Davis does not return to New Orleans, the Saints may want to keep Werner as Danny Stutzman's inside partner. But if Davis does come back, or if New Orleans decides to clear more space for Stutzman to grow into a full-time starter, then Werner hits the trade block and the Bears should be first in line to make that call. And here comes the key reflection. Ryan Poles has shown the ability to make smart roster decisions. Not always perfect, not always without drama, but smart. Bringing in Werner would be exactly that kind of move. Practical, cost-effective, and perfectly in sync with the philosophy Dennis Allen wants to bring to Chicago. The Bears' defense has the talent to be one of the best in the NFC, but it needs the right complement at linebacker, and Werner could be that missing piece. Bear down. If that sounded big, The next story is going to make you think hard about what kind of team you want the Bears to build for 2026, and there is a safety decision that is so perfectly ironic, it is almost hard to believe. Let's get into it. Kamren Curl, why Demario Davis, free agency. Now we get to the really interesting part, and this deserves full attention because these two free agency storylines have massive implications for what the Chicago Bears are going to look like in the 2026 season. This is about a safety and a linebacker who could come to Chicago for very different reasons, but whose arrival or absence would directly impact how high this team can climb. First, Kamren Curl. Yes, that Kamren Curl, the Los Angeles Rams safety who picked off that last Caleb Williams pass in the divisional round and sent the Bears packing. Everybody knows exactly what went through the mind in that moment. And here's the thing. The first time Curl's name popped up on the Bears' radar, it took a minute to process because the irony in this whole situation is absolutely massive. But let's put it in perspective because football business does not care about hurt feelings. And the question the Bears have to ask is not how did that interception feeling, but what can Curl do for this team? And the honest answer is a lot. Curl wrapped up the 2025 season with 122 tackles, a career high. For context, that number is higher than any player on the Bears had last season. Tremaine Edmonds led Chicago with 112 tackles. Curl had 122. And for the Rams, that total was second on the team, just behind Nathan Landman with the same 122. That is the kind of production the Bears desperately need at safety, especially now that Kevin Byard III and Jaquan Brisker are free agents, and both of their futures in Chicago are up in the air. Curl is 26 right now and will turn 27 during the 2026 season. That puts Curl right in the sweet spot of an NFL prime. Curl has been durable through 6 seasons in the league, which is critical when talking about investing in a position as physically demanding as safety. And Curl is coming out of a Rams organization that has built a sustained winning culture. Sean McVay has put together something legit in Los Angeles, and any player who comes to Chicago from that culture brings real work habits and a competitive mindset that matter inside a locker room. And here is the question. Is that not exactly what Ben Johnson needs while building a new culture as the Bears head coach? The answer looks like yes. Bringing in players from winning organizations is part of the process of turning the Bears into a true top-tier team. And if there is mutual interest between Curl and Chicago, that is a conversation the Bears are obligated to have. The challenge is the free agent market. Curl is exactly the type of safety every team wants. Young, productive, durable, with experience in a high-level defensive system. Curl is going to have options, and the Bears will have to move fast if they want to be at the front of the line when the market opens. Ryan Poles knows the window with Caleb Williams is right now. And building the right defense around what could be an explosive offense is the number one priority. Now to the second free agency topic, and this one is trickier from an analysis standpoint. Demario Davis, the New Orleans Saints linebacker, hits the market and is on the Bears' radar mainly because Dennis Allen, Davis's former defensive coordinator and head coach, is now running the defense in Chicago. The connection is obvious. The logic is easy to understand. But here is the straight-up take, and this might sound harsh until the whole argument is laid out. The Bears should stay away from Demario Davis. And here is why. Demario Davis is 37 years old, turned 37 in January, and before anyone jumps in to say Tom Brady played until 45, here is the reality. Brady was the wildest outlier in football history. Demario Davis, with all due respect, is not Tom Brady. Davis is an outstanding linebacker who has put together a phenomenal career. With 1,536 total tackles over 14 seasons and 2 Pro Bowls, that is a legacy anyone would be proud of. But football is a right-now business, and SpotRack estimates Davis's market value at $9.5 million. For a 37-year-old linebacker, that is a high-risk bet, and the risk gets even bigger when factoring in that the Bears would already be cutting Edmonds to free up that $17.4 million cap hit, signing Davis for almost $10 million, and then watching the veteran fall short of expectations would mean Chicago just burned over $27 million at linebacker in back-to-back seasons without getting results. That is exactly the kind of decision that can stall the growth of a hungry, young roster with real Super Bowl ambitions. To be fair, Davis put up some eye-popping numbers last season, an overall grade of 80.3 from Pro Football Focus, and an 88.9 run defense grade is nothing anyone serious could just shrug off. That kind of production at 36 is incredible. It speaks to an athlete who takes care of the body and still competes. But the NFL is a league of razor-thin margins, and at a position as physically punishing as linebacker, the gap between a 30-year-old and a 37-year-old can decide big moments. So what makes more sense for the Bears' future? Investing in Davis as a one-year, high-risk patch, or using that money to hit free agency and the trade market for younger options with more long-term upside? The second option clearly looks better, and it is hard to imagine Ryan Poles not seeing it that way. If Jackson's ready to step up into a full-time starting linebacker role, that shifts the whole equation. And if the Pete Werner trade actually happens, the Bears could lock down the interior in a cheaper way with more development upside. Davis is a big name, and the idea is comforting considering the history with Allen. But in this specific case, the risk outweighs the reward. The Bears have a real shot to contend for a Super Bowl in the next few years. Caleb Williams is the real deal. Ben Johnson is the most in-demand offensive mind in the league. And the defense has the core to be elite, but every roster move matters. Every cap dollar counts, and in this situation, the smart play is looking forward, not falling back on familiarity. Bear down, Chicago. This free agency period is going to decide whether the Bears are legit contenders or just another playoff team, and this channel is locked in on every move. All right, let's close this out strong because this has been a video packed with information every Bears fan needed today. And before signing off, there are a few things this community needs to do. First, the stadium. What went down between Kevin Warren and George McCaskey this week is something that cannot just be brushed aside. A badly handled statement, an owner furious, and a whole city split between Indiana and Illinois. Where do you think the new Bears stadium should be built? Indiana or Illinois? Drop that take down below because every opinion needs to be heard. Second, Pete Werner. If the Bears pull the trigger on a trade with the Saints to bring in a linebacker with 63 games of experience in Dennis Allen's system, that looks like a smart move. But do you agree? Can Werner really be the right replacement for Tremaine Edmunds in this Chicago defense? Hit the comments because that debate needs to be big. Third, the most divisive free agency decision in this whole video, Kamren Curl, yes or no? The player who ripped the Bears' playoff dreams to pieces could become the new enforcer in the Chicago secondary. If that is not NFL irony, nothing is. And Demario Davis, the 37-year-old vet Dennis Allen would love to reunite with, brings all the experience but also all the questions. Do you sign Davis or hunt for a younger option? Put that answer down below. Look, this community exists because of you. Every comment, every like, every time you share one of these videos with another Bears fan, you are building something special. This is a Navy and Orange family that lives and breathes this team, and the mission here is simple. Bring you the sharpest analysis, the freshest info, and the most genuine passion you can find on YouTube about the Chicago Bears. If you have not subscribed yet, do it right now. It is free, it is quick, and it is the best way to make sure you do not miss a single Bears update in an off-season that has the chance to be historic. Turn on that notification bell so when a new video drops, you are the first to know. And if this video hit the spot, hit like, because that helps this channel reach more Chicago fans and keeps this thing growing. This is Miguel Morales, the voice of Bear Nation on YouTube, and as long as there is Bears news, there will be videos here breaking it all down with you. Bear down, Chicago. Da Bears. See you in the next one. In the